Okay, well, I'm going to chair now and call this meeting to order. This is the Committee of the Whole meeting for Tuesday, January 20th, 2026. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Wu.
Here.
Councilmember Evans.
Here.
Councilmember Hersey. Councilmember Colasetti.
Here.
Councilmember Bishop. Councilmember Wilkin.
Here.
Councilmember Quisenberry.
Here.
Mayor Williams.
Here.
Thank you.
Next, we will have the approval of minutes, and with the clerk's permission, I'd like to bundle all four of these in one motion. Thank you. Approval for minutes December 15th, 2025 of regular city council meeting minutes. The same date as December 15th, 2025, Committee of the Whole meeting minutes. January 5th, 2026, City Council meeting minutes, and January 5th, 2026, Committee of the Whole meeting minutes. Does anyone have any substantial corrections?
I
Grace.
would move approval, and I do have a comment.
Go ahead.
You want a second?
Is there a second for the seconded?
There's just a small date correction on the minutes for 1/5/26 Committee of the Whole meeting that I believe the clerk's already taken care of.
Okay.
Yes, the minutes that were sent in the packet, the date in the header also shared the 12/15/2025 minutes because those were the ones that were written first. And so in our template, we just didn't get that updated. But the minutes are, in fact, all correct. We just need to adjust that date.
Thank you. All those approving of the minutes, say aye.
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 Any nays, say nay. No. And the ayes have it. Those minutes will be approved. Next up is additions to the agenda. Does anyone have any additions to the agenda? Seeing none, we'll go on to the next thing, which is presentations and public input. Any public input tonight? No. Seeing none, we will now have from the Executive Committee a presentation on the Placer AI. And Darius, you have the floor, sir.
What broke?
Good evening, everyone. So I am here today to provide a presentation for Placer AI, one of the softwares that we have on our surveillance ordinance list, to give you more information as to what this database is, how it's utilized by us, and any protection that the website provides in regards to individuals' privacy. I do apologize. I was not able to memorize all the slides, so I will be doing a lot of just reading off my notes. But at any point, please feel free if you have any questions to stop me, and I'll be happy to answer questions along the way. So again, Placer AI is a location analytic platform that uses anonymized mobile device location data processed with AI and machine learning to provide insight in foot traffic, consumer behavior, and market trends for businesses and civic organizations. Placer AI aggregates this anonymized geolocation data from a panel of tens of millions of mobile devices that have opted into it via various apps. As a privacy by design company, it provides only aggregated statistical information and restricts reporting on sensitive locations. Some general key uses for us with this is within our retail and dining, commercial real estate, civic and tourism, as well as finance. To go into a little bit more detail in regards to all of those, for retailing and dining, optimizing store performance, selecting new sites for expansion, and analyzing cannibalization risk between locations. So this is a wonderful tool in regards to if we are looking for, if we have a location who is looking to utilize their outlots, let's say Myers, which is going to be one of our examples, if they come to us with the ask of helping them as they advertise this, it can go into the details, in particular for cannibalization. So rather than finding other options of retailers that are similar to Myers, we can function this data that it does not show up in the reports we pull. And again, I'll kind of go into that a little bit more into one of our examples. Commercial real estate, evaluating property value, finding the best fit tenants for vacancies, which is a void analysis. I'll go through that as well. And monitoring return to office trends. Civic and tourism, helping local governments attract businesses, measure the economic impact of events, and identifying gaps in community service. Finance, using alternative data to assess the health of companies or real estate assets for investment decisions. So the data, methodology, and privacy, some information in regards to how this, this program works and how it uses its data. Placer AI employs, again, the privacy by design framework that ensures individuals cannot be identified or tracked through its platform. The company continues to utilize several technical and organizational safeguards to protect consumer data. One being the Placer AI does not collect personal identifiable information such as names, phone numbers, or email addresses. It also has an identifier scrubber, which before location data reaches Placer AI servers, its partners strip away mobile advertising identifiers, contact information, and other persistent data IDs, device IDs, excuse me. Differential privacy, the platform applies statistical noise to data sets, preventing anyone from reverse engineering the data to identify an individual's specific path. As well as it has sensitive location restrictions. Placer AI strictly prohibits the generation of reports for sensitive location to prevent misuse. These restriction categories include places of worship, military facilities, pre-K through 12th grade schools, healthcare facilities, including women's health and rehabilitation centers. On the ethical and legal controls, there is a vetted access that they provide for members or interested parties to actually buy into the subscription of Placer AI. So paid access is restricted to legitimate commercial and civic entities. Placer AI does not provide its paid platform to law enforcement agencies or advocacy groups. The platform does adhere to major privacy regulations, as well as data is protected with end-to-end encryption, and the company maintains a system and organization control type 2, which is developed by the American Institute of CPAs. This is the standard for service organizations in North America, and for type 2 in particular, this report provides proves the controls were operating efficiently over a long period, anywhere between a 6 to 12 month radius that they have to do ongoing checks for their data. Trust service criteria, it evaluates an organization based off of 5 principles, bless you. Security, which is protection against unauthorized access, mandatory for all reports. Availability, ensuring systems are operational and meet service level agreements. Processing integrity, ensuring systems process is complete, valid, and accurate. Confidentiality, protecting data designed as confidential. And then last, privacy, handling personal information in line with privacy notices. Now I'm just going to kind of walk through some of the use from the city and previous experiences. What you have in front of you is for a void analysis. So as mentioned earlier, this is just an example based off of some information that we could provide Myers in the case that they are looking to sell their outlots to recruit other businesses in that area. A void analysis pulls from the trade area of the Myers location, and it evaluates a few different things. So here is just a snapshot of a couple of businesses that it recommends. However, in a general report of this, it can get up to 100 businesses, if not more, just depending on what in particular we're looking for. So just to let you all know, the one thing, a couple of things that I, marked off in pulling this void analysis is that I removed other grocery stores, so there wasn't any competition for Myers and their own outlots. I also marked businesses that have operated in Illinois. That's something kind of we would initially look for first in economic development, as they are familiar with the laws within Illinois. And just makes for an easier transition if we were able to recruit this business. But as you can see, you have about 7 or 8 businesses in front of you. The first column, the 13 minutes that you see with Marcus Theaters, is the average time a consumer travels to that location. So again, it's going to highlight what your residents within the 13 minutes, if it's worth the travel for them. And so it'll all end up in this end percentage at the end that I'll get to. The 101.9 miles that you see in that column, that is where the closest location is of that business that it's providing. So again, the idea was not to have any cannibalism. Not all businesses, such as our coffee shops, are going to put 2 or 3 in one location. So it does get to that information for us. The state and U.S., that number is how many of this business in particular. Let's go with Marcus Theater. There are 6 in the state of Illinois. There are 69 in the U.S. Again, just for us to know how large this business is. The second number, the percentages, or the next column, this is their average rate of growth. So again, if Olivia and myself are looking to try our best to recruit a business in there, this will give us some type of idea if there's already interest shown in this business to grow, whether in the state or in the United States. Let's go down to row 2 for Cinmark. As you see, they have a negative 16.67% for the state and a negative 1.88% for U.S. So ideally, they are closing their doors. So that wouldn't be a company we would reach out to, although the last number that you can see, the percentage, is the value that they have in that area. Do they meet the customers that are in your area regarding who are shopping at Myers? So it evaluates this and pretty much provides a percentage, as in 100 to 0, of how realistic this business would fit in that area. So although it's 97.5%, meaning it would be a great addition to that area, there are other things that we will have to take in consideration to see if they're worth recruiting or passing their information on to Myers. So again, this is a void analysis, something that we will ideally do for South Philo as we look to support and create a plan for there. It will help us to identify locations or businesses that can go there. Also with Placer AI, they pull off of the national chain. So your mom and pop stores won't be listed on there. However, that doesn't limit us from using this. In the case of, as you see, our 4th row is City Barbecue. That's just a clear understanding that a barbecue space would do well in that area. So we could still use this information to contact our local investors, our local entrepreneurs who are looking for that opportunity to take on a business. Hey, are you interested in opening up your own barbecue location, bless you, under your own name or whatever it may be? Or are you interested in becoming a holder of these businesses, and once again, what is the opportunity for us to connect you for you to have a change for yourself? Another city use, in particular for us, that we were excited about this information during the COVID-19 was the recovery dashboard. One thing I do really want to highlight in this is if you look at the retail chain's foot traffic recovery over time. So this is identifying the amount of individuals within this time span, but it's not telling you who that person is, where they're coming from, where they're going in this data. But it does show us if we decide to support different categories, whether retail, service, restaurants, we could pull this information up to see how they're doing. This is specific for Urbana, Illinois, and we can compare ourselves to other cities to see how businesses are recovering. Again, this information can help us in recruitment if we're looking at a particular category of a business. Is that business something that is on the rise as it's recovering out of the pandemic? Okay, sorry. The last thing I want to touch base with is the packet that you all have in front of you. So this is a dashboard of a business. In particular, what I did was chose our McDonald's on Philo Road. So if we were to pull this data for them, if they wanted to contact us to have a better understanding of what they're seeing as far as their customer, or if we, once again, wanted to use the data to say, hey, we can justify another fast food restaurant on Philo, this is the information we would look through. So if you would scroll through, or if you would flip through this handout I gave you all, for those that are looking up at the screen, unfortunately, this is not on the presentation. I couldn't figure out a good way to put this 12 pages up there just yet, but we can share it out publicly if necessary. If you go all the way to page 3, page 3 has the metrics for visitors. So once again, you're seeing numbers of visitors. You're not seeing who they are, what their email address is, any of that specific data that we may be concerned with surveillance, just the overall number of how many visitors this restaurant is receiving within whatever date time frame that we put this that we pull the report within the request. As well as you'll see visitor trends at the bottom showing if they had good months or bad months, things of that nature. Just once again, helpful data for us to understand if a business is doing well, or even to communicate with them if they find that they're having lower trends in a certain season. We could support them with this data to let them know what their numbers are looking like outside of the information clearly they can collect. But if it is useful in operating their business, we can share this information with them. Going over to page 4, again, it kind of just goes into more specifics. You have your daily visits and your hourly visits. Again, showing an overall number within the date or the time, but not getting into the actual details of an individual specifics information. Page 5, the visitor journey route, which I think may have been mentioned in the past and may have been concerning to hear that this may follow where you're going. If you look at it, and it may be a little bit hard to look into, but as you see the point in the middle, the pinpoint in the middle of the map, and you'll see some highlighted lines, yellow, green, red, it's showing you the travel location based off of streets and roads that are utilized, and it does give you a number of visitors, a range. But directly under the map, I just want to highlight, it says to protect individual privacy, the beginning points shown for each route are approximations and do not represent actual home locations. So again, not going into those details of overstepping privacy for individuals. The next page is a heat map, and similar, it does give you a reference that this does not take in consideration their direct location of home. And then if you just continue to go, it'll go into more details regarding visitors of origin. So again, we can kind of have a understanding of where individuals may be coming from city-wise. This would be a good option if businesses are wanting to do additional marketing. They have an understanding of where visitors are coming from as far as cities or towns or even villages, but again, not directly pointing to someone's home. And lastly, page 9. I'll touch on a couple more pages, but page 9, favorite places. Again, it gives us a list of what this has identified through its mobile apps as to where people are going to from McDonald's. It doesn't show a destination of their home again, and remember that there are several locations of sensitive there are several sensitive locations it will never identify. But again, just pointing out, people that are going to McDonald's, they typically will go to Walmart, Myers, Pine Tree Plaza, Urbana Crossing. Again, to highlight, this may be a possibility of some cross partnership with businesses if they can identify a route that's being used or a favorite place within itself. Again, for us, it may be considered that, hey, if we're doing something out of the box in our marketing or supporting their marketing, these may be locations within that route that you may want to market in, because these same consumers shop at this McDonald's as these other locations. So the first one was favorite places. The second one are prior and post compare. So again, individuals leaving Myers typically may stop at Walmart, and then on the other side are your posts McDonald's. On the post side of it, after you leave McDonald's, for some reason you're deciding to go get groceries, even though you have a hot meal in your passenger seat. And then last is your trade area coverage by distance. Again, just having an understanding of how much of a population is coming from how far away and how far people are willing to travel for your business. There was page 12. Again, there are traffic volume. As you kind of follow through the pink, which I think they're all kind of pink and purple, highlighted roads in this map, again showing you where people are coming and going for this destination. Again, it will just show you their hot routes, but it does not go into details as to tracing you directly to your resident. That is some general information regarding Placer AI. I will be happy to take as many questions as possible, and if I can't answer, I'll be happy to reach out to Placer AI, get that information, and get it to you all as soon as possible.
Question, Mary Alice.
Hi, thank you, Darius, for the information. It's an interesting product. I have several questions, but I'm going to start with two and let other people have an opportunity. So I want to know what apps people are opting into this Placer AI. It would be good to know. It doesn't have to be every single app, but kind of a list. And then you mentioned that they have partners, and I would like to know who those partners are.
Okay. In particular, I think it was the mention of how they scrub the material before it gets to Placer AI. Those partners do the scrubbing for them. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. I also have a few questions, and we'll throw out the first two. One was also Mary Alice's about the apps, but additionally, what percentage of people are accounted for with that they estimate? You know, kind of based on those apps. Like, I mean, obviously it doesn't account for people without phones or smartphones or who carry them on them. But, you know, if it's certain apps that have location tracking ability, what's the estimate of the percentage that they're capturing based on reality?
So can you give me an example? Like, let's just say if you're using the app Facebook, you want to know like how many of that percentage of Facebook apps or how many of Facebook users are being pulled to Placer AI? Is that kind of how you're asking it?
I think maybe more so like say the farmer's market threw out that there was 1,000 people there just for a nice whole number, but say 100 of them don't have or didn't bring their smartphone, so it's not going to count for them. Say that Placer AI tracks on Facebook and weather apps and those sorts of things. What percentage of people typically have those things on their smartphone if they have them with them? So like it's not going to be 100% either way, but what do they estimate is the percentage that they're actually capturing from the population based on what apps and how it's tracking?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another one was also kind of general about how this relationship works. because I'm trying to understand if, as the city, we buy the data that's already being collected everywhere all the time, or are we asking them to track this data specifically for our use? And then also with that relationship, would like to know a little more about the cost and also how it's set up. Like, is it per query that we're using it, or an annual subscription model, and what is that cost? So happy to have that at a later date and hear any initial thoughts if you have them now.
It is an annual subscription. The exact number offhand I don't have, but I can get that information for you. In regards to the information that we're tracking, so this is data that's already collected, pulled from them. We just, when we establish a account with them, we have to give them the GIS request, or the geographical design of our city, and they'll map out Urbana, and from there, data will be pulled from Urbana in particular. However, we can decide to look into other communities. So if we want to compare ourselves to Champaign, and let's just say we wanted to see how Champaign's car washes are doing because we don't have a automatic car wash here, and we're looking to do, we can go on there and get that information as well. So other cities and states that have opted into it, or it is pulling information, we can look into it on a limited basis. They do, if I wanted to pull this same report on a different city, it will not allow me. It will only allow me to pull general reports based off of our location. However, we can view data of other things, but I can get some more information as to how that is processed, any regulation regarding that.
And if I made just one follow-up question on that, is our data in Urbana then accessible to anyone who wants to purchase it, or do we as the city have exclusive rights to that data? Like if someone wanted to just go to Placer AI and say, I'll pay that annual price for Urbana's Placer AI information, is that possible? Will they sell it to others?
I got you. So I can look into it, and I think it will be similar to our access. So once you purchase a account with Placer AI, you have to give them your city, village, town, geographical area, and you're set within that as far as the hard data that you're able to pull. However, as a state, or as a city, excuse me, because we have national chains that they follow, that information is throughout Placer AI. So any McDonald's, if they want to see the trends of how this McDonald's is doing, they can see it. I don't think they can access it and pull the data off compared to print it, hand it out, and be able to use it in that way compared to doing a comparison. So I can do a comparison of other cities that they have data from. And no matter what, if we decide, and it's just saying, if we decide to opt out for any reason, it's not like Urbana just goes off of their, out of their system. It's still within their system. It's just not being utilized.
And
But I'll look for more information.
Yeah, I think just to clarify on the Placer AI end, I'm just curious if like myself or anyone could say, hey, I'll pay you whatever the cost is for an annual subscription. This is my Urbana area. I want like all the full access reports, or is this something only open to like government bodies or something like that?
Yeah, so for accounts, it is vetted for civic organizations as well as commercial real estate, any type of real estate business. But as mentioned kind of before, they wouldn't allow just a one-off law enforcement to purchase the property. They wouldn't allow advocacy organizations to just purchase a membership. It is created for local municipality and real estate agencies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jaya.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is really helpful. Yes, kind of a follow-up in terms of the data access piece. How does this work in terms of like, could this information be FOIA'd if we have, a physical copy, right, and we print it out? What is that line in terms of like a resident who's just like, oh, I want to see that? Could they FOIA it? Are there data sharing restrictions that kind of protect from it, kind of going outside of the municipal purview?
I don't think we have anything necessarily in writing or held by Placer AI for it. For what we have utilized it for is we've only shared it with our business that we are working with. So, for example, in the past, this has been used for the Rose Bowl parking lot. So that information was shared out to them as well as to council when we did a report on the evaluation of the success or in need of improvement of Rose Bowl. We were able to do foot traffic counts, which again is an approximate number. It's never 100%. I guess the good takeaway is whatever that number looks like. So if we're seeing 300 a day, most likely it's more people because everyone doesn't get followed. But we have just shared that with businesses that has approached in the past, or if we were out to support them in any way, we've gone that route. But I can get some more information.
Anyone else with questions? Go ahead, Mary Alice. I knew you did.
Yeah, I just have a couple more. So I was curious, at least for the Meyer one that you showed us, I felt like some of those companies were random. Do you put in different kind of types of companies that you're looking for? Yeah.
Yes, so you can. We can be very specific if we want to. So what I did was I left every category open except for grocery stores, and because the first three businesses that came up were Mexican restaurants, I pulled that out, just knowing that we have one right across the street. But it still kept in the first one because that's considered a fast food. So it took it out of the Mexican restaurant category, but it kept it as fast food. But yes, we could. If we wanted to focus in directly on the service business, we could put that as a category that we're only looking for. Yes, ma'am.
And I see we've got Public Works back here. John, correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like for Safer Streets on Lincoln, we use this data as well. Is that right?
Oh, it's a good memory. It's similar. It's not Placer. It's called Streetlight, which also would pull from a similar type of data usage, kind of anonymized cell phone travel.
Right.
Yep.
And then, so I'm trying to make sure I understand kind of the process. So people opt in, and probably under those terms and conditions that everybody just scrolls through and just says accept. They opt in, and then this company gathers information based off of cell towers, I'm assuming, and then hands it to another company to scrub, and then gives it back. Is that kind of the process?
That's my best guess as well, but I can kind of get some additional information from Placer as to their steps, the process to that final product that we receive.
I mean, I guess at the end of the day, I think people would be most concerned with where does that raw data live? Who has access to that raw data? Is it this, so I'll give you an example. I had a really good conversation with Crime Stoppers, and they are very, very adamant that they do not know who submits a tip, and they run it all through Canada. And that's how they keep it private. So it's a very, and so I guess what I'm saying is there are ways to do it that don't fall within the United States. It would be good to understand how Placer treats that.
Gotcha. I will do.
And then very small thing, because I didn't quite get it, on page 9, favorite places, McDonald's, we have visitors and percentages, and I don't understand the percentages. So Champaign Town Center South has 41,000 visitors, which is 70.5%, but Walmart has 67.8%.
Yeah, so see the difference. So your difference in your number, your 41,000 compared to your 39,000. So what they're looking is that their overall visitor number. So let's just say based off of the 70% at 41, probably can easily say that would be roughly, let's just say 65,000 will be your total visitors that it's pulling numbers from. So it gives you a approximate amount and a percentage for that. So if 65% is your 100%, your 41,000 is 70% of that 65,000. Do you kind of get what I'm saying? Then
I don't, but I can ask you afterwards. I don't. We can go over it. I mean, I feel like it's a check all that apply. So people are going to Walmart and then they're going to Meijer and et cetera. Or I was thinking it was unique, but I don't want to take up council time to go over that. I guess my last question is, how many points does Placer AI keep track of? So in that past example, it was McDonald's, Walmart, Meijer. does it keep track of that individual as it goes through that path? And I think that's some of the concerns that people have. So it would be good to understand all the points that it's picking up.
Okay.
All right, those are my questions.
Thank you.
Grace.
Thanks, Chair. Just let Darius catch up on notes. And I think I forgot to say thank you for the presentation in my first rounds of questions. I really appreciate getting more information from this. I think it's an important part of the process. So I'm trying to understand maybe also some of the accuracy. Like, this is also just my question in general with the robots, but like, how does it know? You know, like, especially think, for example, like Lincoln Square Mall, there's a lot of people who go to walk around. You know, do they count that they shopped at all of those places when they walked by? If you just drive, sometimes I go through a drive-through and like the line's too long and, you know, you kind of just like go past the drive-through line. Like, does that count as someone who went through versus who actually went through the drive-through? Like, I'm really curious about the accuracy of that, and also people's residences versus adjacent shopping centers. You know, like the Pines on here, I find interesting because there are a lot of houses all right next to it. Like, if you're looking at some kind of vague phone location, how would they know some of that difference if you're 20 feet away from this shop versus someone's home? So curious in that kind of in general, and if you have thoughts now or if that's a bigger picture question for them and their technology.
So not sure if anything's changed, but I do know what originally, so in my previous role with economic development, that their data was collected based off of a certain amount of time you were at a location. So again, it's based off of your, what I kind of went to is your visitor data compared to the profit a business is seeing or anything like that. So nothing was monetary in a sense compared to this is how many people you're seeing as a traffic flow in your area. But you're completely right. You could easily go through, drive through, decide, you know, the wait's too long, keep moving. Again, none of the, and it tells you, you know, as you pull reports that nothing is 100% on the numbers. It's the best accurate, you know, option that they can give us. But in these cases, with working with the business, we will be very clear, or if we are recruiting or something like that, that's something we will take in mind as we know this number is not 100%, but based off of the high percentage we're seeing, we think that we can support this, or we think that it can be a positive asset to the community if it's a void analysis use. But I can be happy to get what's the time threshold of a stay as it's being read in. One thing they will also add is it is very difficult for them to pull off of large shopping centers because, once again, you do have multiple businesses in one area. So you usually, and funny enough, we had Marketplace Mall called us when we first got this, like, can you share your data? We were like, you're in Champaign? No, we can't. They bought it themselves. But they had the understanding that it wasn't Foot Locker or Ross or somebody inside the mall, it was the mall owners. And they were more concerned about how much traffic flow they're getting and where is it coming from as far as what hot streets, so they could do some additional marketing as they were attracting new businesses in.
Thank you. And then I'm curious about, well, I guess one kind of comment, and if you have a response, because I appreciate some of the restricted places, and I think you said women's health centers in particular, but it looks like general health centers like Carl is on a lot of these reports, and just wonder some of the sensitivity of health providers that provide an array of services, like if that could be reproductive, psychiatric, like that there could be other things in that healthcare facility. And I thought also previously you had mentioned some demographic data tied to this. Is that the case?
So first question in regards to like Carl. So and this is only my belief, but I can find more information. But at the end of the day, there are still some businesses within it. So if Carl decides to put a Starbucks inside, there's still that traffic that's going to those businesses within that Carl may decide to utilize this information for those purposes. But it will never again kind of tell us what people are going there for the use of, and that data wouldn't be shared. Any type of demographic information, we would have to opt in to reports because we personally don't need that information. We don't opt into it when we're pulling a report to add any type of demographic information. And any demographic information will be, again, based off of an approximate number based off of your population, and then they'll pull from the most recent census. So in our case, I'm not even sure if they pull from like our special census, but what was that census? 2023. That data will kind of come from that in regards to our population demographics, but we don't utilize that information, so I don't opt into it when pulling reports or request that information from them.
So, but it's tied to the census, not to people's cell phone tracking?
If we were to opt into it, it'll tell you census 2023 or whatever, and you can like kind of choose a census if you decide to go that route, but we don't have any desire to share that information or use it ourselves. But it does say you're choosing based off of census. It doesn't say, do you want to pull African American phone records? It pulls it off of census records that it shows us as an option.
But would it show you, like, for this McDonald's scenario, could you say, if we did want to opt in, say, what's the average, like you mentioned things, I think maybe like education level or salary of the visitors? Like, is it tracked to the people's individual phones?
And I don't know if it's from phones or it's general information from census. I can get that information, but I know when we initially received the presentation from Placer, that was like, oh, this is something you can get. We had no desire, so we never pulled into it, but we knew that was kind of a red flag in a sense for us, but we don't utilize the information. So,
Thank you. Yeah, I would be curious in more information on that, because it seems like there's no way the census could tell you that stuff about McDonald's visits in particular. They have to be getting it from cell phone tracking if they're going to provide that. That's all for my questions for now. Thank you. Again, really appreciate some more information and looking forward to learning more still.
James?
Do they disclose as a part of this whether the location that they're using is actually one reported by the phone or an estimate based on triangulation from the tower? Because they can identify location both of those ways. The phone is actually highly accurate. The tower kind of triangulation is not quite as accurate. But do they say?
I don't recall, but I can get that information.
Because if you have an iPhone, you can be really careful about which apps have access to your data. Mm-hmm. The other thing I know from personal experience that both Apple and Google, from a practice standpoint, do not allow apps in their store that combine health information and geolocation. I know that because when the campus started doing testing, they actually had to split the campus app and the app that was recording your test status apart, because one had more geolocation capabilities, and they had to split them. You may remember there was a Safer app and there was the Illinois app for exactly that reason, because the providers, Apple and Google, would not approve them being added to their stores if those data were combined. Now, that was 2020 and 2021. Things may have changed since then, but that was one of the reasons. That was a safeguard that at least we encountered in a situation where an app was going to have both patient health information and location identification in it.
Okay, I can check with that.
But I am really curious about what location they're using, whether it's the phone reported GPS location or it's the tower estimate of where that phone is when it pings it.
Jaya?
I have a comment, not a question, if that's
We're going to still stick with questions, and we'll come back to you. Do you have any more questions, Mary Alice? I have a few questions. This Techno Boob has a few. So I'm not understanding this at all. What is okay, you said it tracks mobile devices. What are we talking about? Cell phones?
Cell phones that people have opted into certain apps, yes.
So it's okay, is it the Wi-Fi in the building that's reading the app, or what? How is it getting recorded?
It's most likely, so I don't think it's anything to do with your Wi-Fi because you can be off of Wi-Fi on a tower.
Right.
But any apps that it has a partnership relationship with, that it is utilizing the information based off of a person opting into location in that app. So that was one of the questions, was what apps are people opting into. So I'll get a general list of some of those apps to be shared out, but that's how.
Okay, so the app is giving away the location of where the phone is at, right? Okay. Let me ask you this. So the employees at McDonald's remember the armed robber came in around 1:30. Can this system provide the Urbana Police Department a list of all the phone numbers that went in from 1 to 2 p.m.?
No, we don't have access to, and again, it goes back to them scrubbing information before it even gets to their platform. We don't see phone numbers, email addresses, personal home location, anything of that nature. So if they called in, we would not be able to utilize the software for that service, no.
But it can somehow track racial demographics? I mean, but it's going off a census, like what would be the likely percentage of people going to that location? Or
I mean, and like I said, I can pull ask for additional information of how they utilize that census. Yeah. But again, based off of their vetted process, even if we called as the account holder and said, hey, we have this traumatic situation here, they will say, no, we don't collect that information to share out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when we see a map of where it's what the system is doing is tracking where the app is going down the road, not the person or anything like that. It says, well, yeah, the phone. But the app on the phone is what's getting tracked, right?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions? And if not, we'll go to question.
Yeah, I do want to understand this census component a little bit better. It doesn't make any sense to me whether it sounds like the way you describe it is they're predicting what the demographic would be either based on the origin of the trip or the census tract it's currently in or what. That just doesn't seem to, that doesn't make sense to me. So if
yeah,
we could understand what the source of their demographic. I'm going to predict that there are also apps that share demographic information and they're pulling it from that, but that's just my suspicion.
This will make you suspicious, won't you? Okay, any more questions? I mean, that I want to follow up on that. I mean, I guess, could the system then track, if it's tracking your traveling, it also, the app in the phone will tell it where you parked and find your address, right?
No, so it doesn't utilize any personal locations. As it mentioned before, it scrubs that out so we don't see it. So if you go to your handout page 5, right under the map, to protect individual privacy, the beginning points shown for each route are approximation, and do not represent actual home locations. So again, it's one of those things where, and I think it was Councilmember Mary Alice was asking like who owns that raw material and who's the scrubber. That information may be with them, but once it gets to Placer AI, that information doesn't make it to Placer AI.
So her question, like, where is that
That raw
stored?
data, yeah.
Would be good to know.
Yeah,
then.
I'll get that information.
Thank you.
What's the raw
Okay.
data, yeah.
I think we're ready for comments, Jaya, if you want to do that.
Yeah, thank you. So again, I really appreciate this. I will say that this does actually reinforce for me why I'd like for us to have a conversation across departments in terms of surveillance, because you're giving us the answers to the questions that we have, right? Community members aren't going to even know what this is other than, oh, the city has this thing that tracks where I go from place to place. I think all of your answers, as well as the areas that we would like some more information, is really helpful. And it shows that the city is doing its due diligence and understanding how are we using data, where is it? And I think going through a process of saying, okay, this falls into this bucket. It's not like we have to reinvent the wheel every single time. It could be, for this kind of technology, that there's something very similar that we've used in terms of looking at traffic behaviors too, right? That we don't have to create a new template for use every single time. It could be this is the type of technology we use, this is how we use it. But for exactly this kind of reason of, when you hear, hey, the city has this thing that tracks when you go from McDonald's to Carl, that sounds kind of weird, right? But I think that being able to say, this is how it's scrubbed, no, we're not tracking demographic information or specific, individuals, it just helps with that transparency. And I know that this was a lot of work to pull it together, so I don't want to make it sound like, okay, every single thing we have to create a new policy that's specific to it. But I think that, the goal with the surveillance ordinance is to set a certain standard for a process. And we're never going to have these conversations if we just say it's only the police department. And I think that we've gained a lot of really important information tonight, as well as areas that we would like more information as well. So I would just say that this information is really helpful. I think it does kind of speak to that commitment to transparency for our residents, but also reinforces my belief that we should be incorporating all of our departments into the surveillance ordinance.
Grace.
Thanks. Yeah, appreciate and echo some of those comments for sure. I'm also curious and not convinced about an opt-in policy. My understanding is that the U.S. does not require opt-in, and opt-out policies are perfectly fine, unlike European Union things, that there's likely no active consent and there's an opt-out policy that's obscure and hard to find. So I object to this opt-in concept. I'd be happy to be proven otherwise, so happy to learn more about it, but I am skeptical that that's the case based on my current understanding. I definitely agree that this highlights the need for the surveillance and having oversight and transparency from all departments, I think, to communicate with the public how we're using their tax money and how the city is using this tracking information that's being produced, and to prevent any potential abuse from happening in the future. I think it's a strange reality, like you said, that we do have these random phone apps that I'm not aware of. I've never seen an opt-in or out of any of this tracking, and I'm probably being tracked by multiple things on my phone and don't understand the ins and outs of it. And there are companies that are tracking very intimate location and demographic information. I believe that they track me around on my phone and know that my age and race and maybe income and a whole bunch of other personal information, and are tracking my movements all around. And I understand that then it's, glad to hear it's apparently scrubbed, and that's kind of a process to get some of that information out of there, and appreciate how, we can hopefully learn more about that coming up. So definitely understand that this is not the city doing all this tracking, that this is the strange technology reality that we live in today. But I think it is definitely important that as the city, we're being really upfront about how we're using it and what we're spending to use it. And I think that the ordinance would address just those things: a justification for use, our policy for using it, and the costs, and an approval. And I think that all makes sense. So I really appreciate starting the conversation here, and looking forward to learning more. So thank you.
Anybody else with comments? Mary Alice, will you take the chair?
Sure, I'll take the chair, and the chair recognizes Chris.
Thank you. Let me give you one it's understandable that investors with large amounts of money want to know if their prospective business will be profitable. And they're going to want data like this to make those predictions and estimates. And I'll give you one happy story where this kind of information actually produced a good result, and that is when Angela Bradley went after that $2.4 million state grant. This kind of data was used to prove to the state that a Ward 3 grocery store would be a good bet. And it was scary information. They knew how many times these people in this neighborhood went to the grocery store and what kind of purchases they were making. It was just spooky. I didn't like it, but it helped them say, you can have $2.4 million. The other comment I want to make, and I hear this often, is because of this, as Grace mentioned, these are, corporate application, apps that kind of impose this geographical tracking on us. And the excuse is often given, hey, in this day and age, your cell phone is tracking you all the time. So other forms of surveillance devices ought to be done and ought to be accepted because it's just the age we live in. And so I don't want something like this to be an excuse to accept facial recognition, for instance, or whatever technology is being proposed. So that's just my skeptical kind of paranoia regarding surveillance in general. This is a new age we're living in. It is a little disconcerting and how accurate and how omnipresent it can be, but I can't imagine living nowadays without a cell phone to be contacted or to be able to contact people. So I'm stuck with this, surveillance device on me, so Darius, thank you for all the information. This is great. And I agree with Alderperson Colasetti that this does make a case for all departments being subjected to a kind of policy and review, because it does leak into all kinds of things, other departments and other issues, and regarding tenants and landlords and, all this stuff, and cars and where are they going and what's going on, so, okay, I'll leave it at that and I'll take the chair back.
I will relinquish the chair back to Chris.
Okay. So I'm guessing we're done. Thank you, Darius. Okay, on to the next thing, which is staff reports. Are there any staff reports? And Darius looks tired, so probably not. Okay, and that takes us to new business, and we'll start with resolution number 2026-01-003R, a resolution for improvement under the Illinois Highway Code, a state motor fuel tax for Florida Avenue from Wright Street to Hillcrest Street, and Public Works. And Mr. John Zeman has the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. All right, so we're here to talk about the Florida Avenue project, the 1.3 miles of improvements from Wright to Hillcrest. Talking about one step of that, but so what is the ask that we're here for? This is a MFT resolution asking for a resolution to appropriate $1.25 million of supplemental state MFT funds for this project. This is going to be an administrative step that is related to Budget Amendment number 6, which Don is going to present after this item. So these are definitely related to each other. So why is there a change here? Because when we went to apply for the RAISE grant, which we eventually were awarded, after the fourth attempt, we had an erroneous assumption about the cost of design engineering as a percentage of construction. This is often kind of a rule of thumb that is not true in all cases, to say that the design engineering is a percent of the construction cost, but particularly when you're in the early stages, when you're trying to apply for a grant, you have a concept of a project. It's a good way to go about it. And unfortunately, we used a 10% of the construction cost for all of design engineering, where now if you look in our capital improvement plan, you'll see what we typically use is 20% of the construction cost for all the engineering that goes into the studies and then the creation of plans for bidding and whatnot. So this is really just correcting an earlier error, and we knew we were carrying this along with us in the last couple of years of our budget. Wanted to just wait until we actually got the proposals of the actual costs from our consultant before coming to you guys to ask for the additional money. So it's a case of well, we kind of knew this was coming, but we anticipated that we could absorb it, so we wanted to wait till we had the real numbers. Got the real numbers. We're in negotiations for the second phase of design with our consultant now, and so that's why I'm coming to you today. I want to talk briefly about where the Florida Avenue project is. We're nearing the completion of the phase 1 part of design, which is studies and getting things like environmental and cultural clearances, getting the large design decisions figured out and approved by the state and the feds. And so we're coming to a close on that within the next month or two, when we'll pivot and move into the second phase of design, which is where we're preparing bid documents for construction. We're moving towards a bidding in late 2027 for construction, hoping for construction to begin in early 2028. Still working towards, utilizing that RAISE grant, that $9.95 million RAISE grant for construction costs. And so what we're talking about, again, before you today, is for the remainder of the kind of the engineering that goes into getting the project ready for construction. The MFT resolution before you will cover the full amount that we don't already have, the full amount of the remaining costs that we don't already have accounted for. But we are going to be planning to approach CUOTS in a couple of weeks, early in February, with a request to amend our federal grant that we're using to pay for design. So currently we're using a surface transportation grant that we obtained through CUOTS to pay for 80% of our design costs. And so I'm going to be bringing this request to CUOTS next month to go ahead and see if we can increase our federal share proportionately, so that really we're only going to be increasing our MFT fund, contribution by a smaller amount, say, around 20% of this $1.25 million. But because we're going to pay for the project up front with MFT funds and then seek reimbursement, we need the whole MFT, the whole amount in the MFT resolution. Sorry, I could have explained that much more concisely, sorry. So in the memo to council, I've got this small table that kind of shows where this $1.25 million came from, because where we're sitting today, our estimate for the total cost of engineering, including land acquisition services, is $2.25 million. Tack on a 10% contingency, which is just because this is an appropriation the state is doing, that will allow us to have some flexibility, like we do with our budgets, of having some flexibility within our budget to make small changes. So then we have a contingency budget of $2.5 million. I take away the $1.25 million dollars of MFT resolutions we've done to date on this project, and that's where I come up with the $1.25 million that I'm asking for today. And then, so that's the ask for the supplemental MFT resolution, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about this resolution or about the project as a whole.
Grace.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. I'm curious with the numbers, what about the $1.18 million in the original RAISE grant for phases 1 and 2?
Yes, so that is where, I'm saying I made a mistake and that was the wrong percentage that I used of construction costs. So that $1.18 million.
I'm just not saying it deducted from the whole. So you're saying we thought it would be 1.18 million, right, at 10%, but it's really going to be more like 2.5 with contingencies at 20%, right?
Yeah.
But in the RAISE grant, I guess, like, maybe information about the grant itself. Do we have that money? Like, what about that money? Because we're putting in 2.5 million ourselves. What about the 1.18 that was originally in there? Are we not subtracting that difference?
I follow you now. So in the grant application, we have to talk about what's the total project cost. But what we actually only asked for from the RAISE grant was construction phase costs. So we had talked about how we're going to be doing, we're getting into design work. We did the corridor study first with RPC, and then we moved into this, design work. And we had a plan to pay for that with the surface transportation funds through CUOTS. But as part of the RAISE grant, that was like that early concept of saying, like, here's what the total project looks like. And so that's where we came up with a budget for that engineering, though it wasn't being asked for from the RAISE grant.
Okay, and so is the raise grant, is that safe, like secured? Do we have that money, or is this a reimbursement?
It will be a reimbursement. I'm continuing to work on the grant agreement with our contacts at DOT and FHWA, and it's a thing that the funds would not be obligated until we are pretty much ready to go to construction, which would be a typical procedure for these federal transportation grants. But for where we sit today, I see it as a pretty safe thing right now. I don't have a reason to doubt it, I guess, at this point.
Sorry, still trying to understand. So the estimate cost is 10 million-ish, give or take a contingency, and that's
Yes.
just construction, not phase 1 and 2 in that cost?
That's correct. Yes.
And so there's no local match for the raise grant, but it only covers construction, not any of the planning and land acquisition. Is that right?
That's correct. And so then the planning costs were, covering with the surface transportation grant, which is also federal money that we get through CUOTS. As a region, as a kind of a metropolitan planning organization, we get about $2.3 million of federal money a year. And one important thing that CUOTS does when we get together is we determine how to allocate those funds between the agencies. We go through a process of applying for it and getting scored. And when people need more money or somebody needs less money, we vote on that as well. So so the preliminary engineering is being paid for through a surface transportation grant, which is an 80% coverage with a 20% local match.
So the raise grants, we expect to be fully reimbursed for construction, but we are on our own to cover planning, engineering, land acquisition out of state motor fuel tax. Is that right?
With the surface transportation grant, yes.
Hopefully as a reimbursement, or that one is certain?
It will also be a reimbursement. So what we have today is we have about $1 million of that surface transportation grant. That's a certainty. I'm going to CUOTS in February is to try to increase that by about another $1 million to cover this shortfall that we're talking about tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Jay. Oh, I'm sorry, Maria. I'll get you next. Go ahead, Jay.
So I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly. So in taking it out of state motor fuel tax, then you said that the goal was to have that kind of reimbursed from the other grant. So I just want to clarify, and I'm sorry if this is too in the weeds, I'm sure something folks have already thought about, that there isn't any kind of supplanting restriction that if we use state motor fuel tax up front, that we wouldn't be able to then ask for reimbursement from another funding source.
No, that is not a concern. There are definitely, there would probably be some funds that should not be used as a local match for these grants, but when we get into these, so we're working on the grant agreement right now for the RAISE grant, and there's a funding agreement for the surface transportation money as well. And so, we explained to them, this is what our local funds are. This is how we're paying for it upfront and then seeking reimbursement. So that's all transparent, with the granting agency and us. So state motor fuel tax is pretty good for that.
Yeah, I guess I just in that process of switching from state motor fuel tax, wanted to make sure that we don't unintentionally tie our hands by saying well, look, we had money to pay for it. Because I will say, just maybe this is my own narrow world of grant experience, that often if you already have it budgeted to pay for it a certain way, then you can't turn around and ask another funder to pay for it because it's supplanting. It's asking a second funder to pay for the same thing. So it sounds like that's not an issue here, but I just wanted to raise it.
It's not, because these grants, we have to pay up front and then seek reimbursement. So we need to have money in our budget for it. So that they want us to do this. Yep.
I certainly am well aware of how reimbursements with the grants going to go, and still they sometimes have that supplanting restriction, but it sounds like it's not an issue, so that's great.
I apologize.
No,
Sorry,
that's okay. No, that's okay. It's like I said, it's
on you.
probably getting into the weeds a little bit. I just would hate for us to be let's use state motor fuel tax and then ask for funding from another funding source and find out, no, we can't.
I understand. Thanks.
Mary Alice.
Yeah, actually, I didn't have the exact question that Jay had, but I have something that's related, which is if we use the MFT funds right now, and we are successful at CUOTS to get some of that, then do we have to submit another thing to MFT saying, hey, we don't need that money right now, or we only need this money instead? I'm just trying to figure out how you basically balance the books.
Oh, well, because I've been doing the MFT audit with IDOT, I can tell you, and you guys are really in for a fun evening. But no, so it's kind of a weird accounting system they do, where yes, I'm telling them up front, hey, I need like $2.5 million to pay for engineering, but then at the end of the day, we're going to balance the books and show that like, oh, 2.2 million or whatever was paid for out of this federal grant. And so this is where we have these like 10-digit section numbers. This one's 1900620000PV. And when we're done with that section, we go and we do this final report of expenditures. It's a very accounting, thing, and we show all the different places where the money came from, what was actually used to pay for this, and then it will push out and say like, oh look, here's this amount of MFT money that wasn't used and goes back into the pot.
So I guess my other question is, with MFT money, is it a reimbursement system like the other grants, or is it you get a lump sum once it's approved?
So we get motor fuel tax from the state. Our portion of the state's motor fuel tax just kind of trickles in regularly. We get motor fuel tax regularly throughout the year. IDOT has in their system, this accounting of what is Urbana planning to do with their motor fuel tax. And it's through these appropriations that they look at that and they say like, okay, Urbana's looking to appropriate this money, looking forward, they are good for that, basically. So this part of this resolution process is to anticipate any problems of like, hey, you're getting over our skis, or whatever it is, we're trying to do too much with MFT, and then this is where IDOT would say, hold up, you can't do that, you can't appropriate that much funding. Does that
Okay,
make
my
sense what I'm saying?
last question. We've been talking about the 10% contingency and the 20% contingency, and what we have here in front of us only accounts for a 10% contingency, right? And not the 20%.
Yes. Okay. So what? Yeah. So for this particular action here, so we're the budget amendment that we're going to bring to you in a minute. Our city's policies, say like, hey, I've got a budget of $1 million. I'm allowed to do a budget transfer administratively plus or minus 10% of that budget. If we do an appropriation with IDOT, there's no like flexibility like that. And so that's the 10%, is to try to build it in so it functions the same way as our policies do with our budgets.
Okay.
So it's
all right.
it's really more of a administrative thing.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Grace?
Thank you. And then can I clarify, those are kind of separate though, right? Just the general 10% contingency versus our planning and engineering going from 10 to 20%, right?
Yeah,
Those
there's
are
a lot.
separate
Yeah,
things,
there's
right?
a lot of different meanings to these percentages. Yes. So like, in here, like the construction cost estimate includes a contingency at this point because we're kind of in the earlier stages where we don't really know everything that we may still, as we go through phase 2 design, we may still pick up some additional costs that we weren't thinking of right now. And yeah, the 10 to 20%, that's, the estimation of what a engineering fee would cost at a concept. Compare with like right now, what I have in front of me is, a consultant went through and was like, okay, I need to create 222 plan sheets and it's going to cost this many hours to do that. So this is this is a real thing, like the real cost here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then also, since you mentioned the budget piece, it looks like the budget amendment is for 1.3 million instead of 1.25. Does that have to do with the 10% on the budget, or is there a issue with numbers there? We can also get that to the next item if we want to chime in, but I was curious in that difference.
The difference comes in is that we have a little more it's kind of a difference between like what do we have on the books for FY26 right now? What do we really need for these upcoming contracts? And then how much did we have as MFT resolutions before? And because that kind of comes into play with the calculation. So I think we just had a little bit more in the MFT resolutions before, so that like I can kind of already borrow from that surplus that we've already resolved, that 1.25 million that we've already resolved for MFT.
Okay, so this first item, we're just saying we're allowed to use the 1.25 million from state motor fuel tax, but then the budget amendment might have some other moving around.
Yeah, because from like IDOT's perspective, they just keep this cumulative total of how much MFT money have we appropriated through resolution. But like for the budget amendment, it's like, okay, what's in the FY26 budget available, and what are the upcoming contracts, coming up?
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Make a motion.
Let me ask a quick question. John, you probably can't answer this, but I got to ask it anyway. In regards to the $9 million raise grant, I'm asking how secure is it? And what I mean specifically is there any chance the lunatic king would claw that back because his attorney general turned in Urbana as a sanctuary city?
Well, I don't see something. I don't see something in the draft grant agreement now that gives me cause for concern. I mean, you're getting money from an agency. Theoretically, like they can change things. Usually, they don't change the rules, right out in front of you, but it's possible. Now, I will say that what we have as a real good benefit in this grant is that we have IDOT as also I guess kind of a partner in this grant with us, to where the whole state of Illinois is, also in this, signing this grant agreement with us, and that we've already seen how that comes into play with some of the preliminary injunctions that became a final decision. Is we were a party to that because the state of Illinois DOT was in that. So we're not alone, I guess, if that it kind of gives some comfort to me there. But yeah.
But the money's not quite in our bank account, right?
Correct. It's not obligated yet, and that's kind of the key. Is like the real secure part is going to be when the grant agreement is executed and the money is obligated, meaning that like now somebody's like got it in a little box for us, ready to go, waiting for us to send in reimbursement, requests. But my understanding is that obligation is not going to happen until like the second half of 2027.
Okay. Last chance for questions. I'll entertain a motion. Mary Alice.
I move on to the consent agenda, resolution number 2026-01-003R, resolution for improvement under the Illinois Highway Code with the state motor fuel tax for Florida Avenue from Wright Street to Hillcrest Street.
Second.
Moved by Mary Alice, seconded by Grace. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any nays, say nay. The ayes have it. That moves to the consent agenda next meeting. Thank you, John. Next up is ordinance number 2026-01-002, an ordinance revising the annual budget ordinance, budget amendment number 6 omnibus. And Don, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. So before you tonight is the budget amendment number 6. And just a reminder, a budget amendment requires 6 affirmative votes, including the mayor, in order to pass. So in this budget amendment, we have several items, and mostly in the general fund, and a couple of items from the capital improvement funds. So in the general fund, we are amending the budget to accept the grant, the $10,000 grants from the Illinois Arts Council Agency. So council accepted this grant in October. And so now we're just recognizing the grant in the budget. The second item in the general fund is a transfer of $15,000 from salary savings due to vacancy to pay for the planning consulting services during the principal planner vacancy. So this will help maintain the current level of service while we're hiring for a new person for the principal planner position. And the next one is we're also transferring some salary savings for the renovations of the IT division office, renovation for, we're doing the renovation for the IT division office, and the expected cost for that is $55,000. And again, this is from salary saving from a vacant position within the executive department. And next, we have the motor fuel tax fund. And John already went over this, so I won't go too much into this. So we're basically transferring money from multiple projects to pay for this project. And then in the sanitary sewer fund, we're increasing the budget for the sanitary sewer lateral reimbursement program by $50,000. And this is because the program has already spent 76% of the annual budget. So this amendment will allow the program to be completed without any additional money for the rest of the year. And as I was reading this, I realized I made a typo in the exhibit. So for the ending fund balance for the sanitary sewer fund, it should be $50,000 less. So the 606,453 should have been 556,453, and I will update this for next week. In terms of fiscal impact, there's no impact to the general fund, so our fund balance stays the same because most of the changes in the general fund are just basically transferred between line items. So staff recommends to the City Council to forward a budget amendment with a recommendation for approval to the at the next City Council meeting. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Mary Alice.
Hi, thanks, Don, for the information. I just have two questions. The first one, the sanitary replacement repair costs, that's the program in which we pay, what, 95% if it's over a street, is that right? Is that the program? This is not the program for the Dr. Ellis.
I will have John answer these questions.
You're right, Mary Alice. This is the general sanitary sewer lateral reimbursement program, which is largely reimbursement for costs that property owner would incur on having to open cut pavement, replace pavement, stuff like that. Yes. Okay.
All right. And we went many rounds with this program. Just so the public is aware, absolutely you are eligible for this program when you meet those certain conditions in terms of what you are having to disturb. But citizens have to pay for it up front and get reimbursed by the city, and that's always been challenging for people, unless things have changed.
That's still the structure of the program, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then my second question has to do with the IT office. I was wondering if that was in the original budget request for this year, or if that's something that came up mid-year. I'm just wondering why we didn't see it before in June.
In terms of the budget, so this was not in the budget for this year. And so we're making the change now. And maybe Thomas or Darius can jump in and answer these questions about why
I'm just thinking, typically when we have units during the budget time, we'll have units come in and say, we would like to do X, Y, and Z, and this is what we'll be able to cover. I'm wondering why that process wasn't for the IT office.
So I believe that that request initially came through IT. Again, I wasn't here at that time, but it wasn't seen as a priority. So that that funding wasn't provided for renovation. I believe the last time the IT department was renovated possibly is about 15 plus years as well. Now IT is fully up to staff, and we actually have people working within the closet of the IT space. And we need to provide an update for that area to be functional for the team that we've assembled for IT. But again, the budget was prior to my time, but I do believe, based off of conversation with Thomas, that that was an initial ask. It just didn't meet the priorities at the time.
Okay, well, I'm certainly not saying that the IT unit doesn't need to work in, not the closet, basically. I don't have any questions about that, but I feel like this is something that could have been added to the annual budget instead of it coming to us right now, because then we have the full cadre of the ask for that. So that's just for future. Thank you.
James.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, could we get maybe the 5-sentence explanation of the renovations that are going to be done, other than just there's a closet being used?
Sure. So it's going to be somewhat similar to the accounting office remodel that just happened, where the carpet in the IT office is as old as the stuff in accounting. So as long as we're doing things, we're going to replace that with non-carpet for a basement. New furniture and layout for the office so that folks have desk and space, and a little bit of remodel of the space, taking out a closet wall to incorporate it more into the space itself. Is that enough? Is that kind of the detail you were looking for there? Okay.
Grace.
Almost lost it. Oh, yes, back to Public Works with this one probably. I guess first question, because I see Florida Avenue path that makes Florida Avenue from Wright to Hillcrest, that makes sense. But then there's also Florida Avenue shared use path that we're taking 600,000 from. So I don't know if you could just share that. And are those not the same things? I guess I thought we were talking about the same thing when we're talking about Florida Avenue project, with the shared use path and the street being the same.
Sure. So they are. So because the shared use path is getting paid for with a separate grant, a state grant, we're keeping them in separate pots, and they will actually be still probably go out as separate construction projects that will be done in coordination with each other.
So there's separate grant money to pay for the shared use path?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And you don't want to mix with the federal money, because then you have the extra federal requirements you have to do. Anyway, but we did, because we got a supplemental grant from the state for that path to the tune of $750,000. Once we add that grant into our CIP fund report, that will free up additional MFT funds. And so I'm kind of like borrowing from FY27's, balance by taking a little bit out of the project this year. That path, we're going to delay the work to line up with the street project. So we're not going to use that money this fiscal year. So it's kind of like borrowing from the next year's amount.
Thank you. Makes sense. And then my other question is, can you tell us something to put at ease any concerns about taking money from other projects like Baker's Lane and Philo and Colorado resurfacing for this Florida
definitely.
Avenue project?
So this is, I'm glad you queued this up, Grace, so I don't look so foolish for underestimating Florida. We had an overestimate on the Baker's Lane path, and so this is just surplus money that the bids came in that much lower than our budget, and so we just have the surplus money there in the MFT balance for the fiscal year. And then for Philo and Colorado resurfacing, with those projects wrapped up, we're just kind of closing out the paperwork. We had $200,000 in the fiscal year 26 budget as that contingency during construction in case unexpected changes came, and that didn't happen. And so we just have, I just need about $50,000 to close out a few things, and so that's where that number came from.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll entertain a motion.
All right, I will move on. I'm sorry, I'll move on to the regular agenda since this is a budget ordinance and the mayor gets to vote on it. So ordinance number 2026-01002, an ordinance revising the annual budget ordinance for budget amendment number 6 omnibus to City Council with the recommendation for approval.
Second.
Moved by Mary Alice, seconded by Jaya. Any discussion? James?
I just want to say that I appreciate this coming to us, particularly around refitting the IT space. Frequently, I can tell you from experience that IT staff are not appreciated. Things are not done for them in the same way. Frequently, they're working in the basement. They don't have natural lighting from windows. And so if we have been doing other offices to try to bring them to a certain level, it makes total sense for us to do this same thing for the IT staff or any staff that are in a working environment where the area has been neglected for some time or that it's not conducive to the work that's being done.
Any other comments? City Clerk, can we do a voice vote or do we need a roll call?
You can do a voice vote because the motion on the floor is just to forward it to council for final
Okay.
consideration.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. That will be forwarded to the next city council meeting. Next item is resolution number 2026-01-004R, a resolution authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement with the Housing Authority of Champaign County for the provision of environmental review services. And Nick, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. So as you just heard, before you this evening is a resolution that would authorize an execution that would allow city staff to perform environmental review services on behalf of the Housing Authority of Champaign County and for the city to receive compensation for staff time spent on the preparation of those reviews. So just a little background. As the lead entity of the Home Consortium, as has been discussed at Council previously, the Home Consortium is the collective geography through which we receive home funds through the Department of Housing and Urban Development that consists of Champaign, Urbana, and then unincorporated parts of Champaign County. As the lead entity of that home consortium, the city is responsible for certifying environmental reviews for HUD-funded projects in that geography. So in the scope of managing CDBG and home program funds that are directly undertaken by the city, grants staff are trained to complete environmental reviews for these projects and regularly do so over the course of our work. So this agreement would allow staff to provide those services to the Housing Authority for projects that it is undertaking that require environmental reviews, again, while ensuring that the city receives compensation for the staff time we spend doing so. So with the understanding that we are already responsible at the level of certification and that grant staff are familiar with this process, having these agreements in place has seemed to make sense over the years. On that note, the city has had several previous agreements with the Housing Authority for the provision of these services going back to 2015, the most recent of which was approved in October of 2022 and which recently expired. So this resolution before you tonight would authorize a new agreement with a term going through November of 2028. So that's a general overview, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Grace.
Thank you. I think makes sense. Thank you for the presentation there. Understand we're just kind of continuing, and it seems like Housing Authority is all okay with this arrangement. I was just wondering, I guess, kind of how often they have to do this, just because it seems like a pretty big expense. Like, is this a regular thing, or only when you're doing a major construction or renovation? And if it is more common, if there's been talk or exploration of like grant money or other means to pay for it. It just seems like, we give so much back to Housing Authority to be like charging them back just feels a little different. Yeah.
So just in terms of how frequently we're doing this, in the previous fiscal year, we performed 5 environmental reviews for them. The year before that, it was 3. So it's honestly not a ton from year to year. And it would be really for any major rehabilitation projects, acquisition projects, or new construction projects. So really projects where there's like a significant physical change happening with respect to a property.
And then any thoughts on considerations for funding, for other funding sources? Or this is just kind of what's been working the way it is?
So generally, you know, when we're performing environmental reviews for projects that are being directly undertaken by the city or our direct subrecipients, we're able to bill that staff time either to project delivery or admin costs that are kind of budgeted within our allocations of the CDBG and home programs, because often the housing authority isn't, you know, they might ask us to do a review for a project that isn't receiving CDBG or home funds and that they're funding some other way. We don't really have a budget line to account for that staff time, so this is just a way of accounting for that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? I will entertain a motion.
I will move resolution number 2026-01-004R, a resolution authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement with the Housing Authority of Champaign County for the provision of environmental review onto the consent agenda for approval.
Second.
Moved by Jaya, seconded by Mary Alice. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. That will be moved to the consent agenda for next week's meeting. Thank you. Okay, next up on the item here is resolution number 2026-01-005R, a resolution approving an amendment to extend a redevelopment agreement project completion date. That would be the Race Street Adventures LLC at 118 and 120 South Race Street, and Community Development will take this. Olivia, you have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you. Good evening, council members. So as mentioned tonight, a resolution is before you to approve an amendment to the Race Street Ventures redevelopment agreement, which is for the properties at 118 and 120 South Race Street, commonly referred to and known as the Fernie's High Horse development project. So the redevelopment agreement was originally authorized by the council on February 24th of 2025, and I believe that passed unanimously with 6 ayes and 0 nays. And in that redevelopment agreement, there was a project completion date identified as March 31st, 2026, and that project completion date was being defined as including or having a certificate of occupancy issued for the property. Because of unforeseen sort of construction delays and just timing issues, which we're joined this evening by Patrick Singer in the audience, and so I'd like to ask the chair to invite him up to answer specific questions about that. But because of those delays, we've just, the applicant or the developer rather, is asking for an extension to October 31st, 2026, and that would be memorialized as an amendment to the original redevelopment agreement. Could the chair invite Mr. Singer?
I could. Patrick, you want to come up and sit up here? And there's a green light that you got to push, and Olivia will show you how there.
You're good.
And you want to speak closely, so we can hear you.
Good evening. Thank you.
Do you want to make any opening remarks, perhaps, or?
No, thank you for the support of the project. It's a really exciting process here as we narrow in on the completion date, but appreciate the support from all the city council members and everybody in the community that's been backing us up.
Great. Questions? Anyone? Oh, thank you, James. Mary Alice.
Hi, I don't have an issue with the extension that you've offered in terms of the timeline. I guess my big thing is we've been down this road with other developers who've sought extensions, and so I just wanted to ask you, how certain are you about this date, or does the date need to be later?
I'm fair. I appreciate that question because I had a conversation with Mike McMahon about this exact situation where we initially I was talking about maybe at the end of August, and if I've learned anything about this process is that small things can come up that you never would have seen, especially redeveloping buildings that are, you know, considerably older than, you know, that need a lot of structural repair. So in that process, we're trying to kind of make sure that we don't have to come back again, if you will. So our projection is to be done sooner than that. And so October 31st felt like a nice extra little cushion, but our plan is to be done by the end of summer. And so, you know, that's kind of where we're at right now. But we thought instead of doing the end of August and then coming back and asking for more time, we're like, let's just do end of October just to be certain that we do have a little bit more of cushion because, yeah, you just find things that come up, but feel like we're in a great position now and got a great general contractor working tirelessly to make this thing work. So that's kind of the logic behind why we decided to do that.
Well, I'm glad you gave yourself a buffer. You know, in other projects, things like supplies and elevators and so forth all of a sudden come up, and now we need an extension. And as you heard earlier, we have, a 10 to 20% extension in terms of cost. So having a 10 to 20% extension in terms of time makes sense to me. So thank you.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make one.
Go right ahead.
I will move that we put this on the consent agenda, resolution number 2026-01005R, resolution approving an amendment to extend a redevelopment agreement project completion date, Ray Street Ventures LLC at 118-120 South Ray Street.
Second.
Thank you.
Moved by Mary Alice, seconded by Grace. Discussion. James.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this to us. I do appreciate your answer to Mary Alice's question about having a cushion in there. I also very glad to hear that you have a general contractor involved because that gives us a lot more confidence. I think some of our other delays were in a situation where there wasn't a general contractor involved. So I hope this works out. It sounds great to have it open in August. I hope that's the case. That's the hot time to be bringing a new thing on board in this town. So good luck with that. And hopefully we can see you at an opening sometime in August.
Yes, thank you.
Grace.
Yeah, just echo that. Thanks for continuing to work on this. Sad to see a delay because there's a lot of excitement. We're getting a lot of questions about it. So there's a lot of excitement looking forward to it. So glad that still in the works. So keep people updated. That's still coming just a little bit later, but appreciate still happening. So thank you.
Yeah, and if anyone has any questions after this that come up at any time, you know how to reach me. So I'm happy to talk about progress of the project anytime.
Anyone else? I want to advise the clerk that I'll be voting abstention to an appearance of a conflict of interest. So with that, I'll ask folks, if all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those voting present, and all those voting against, say nay. The ayes have it. That will move to the next council meeting. Congratulations and thank you. Okay, next item is council input and communications. Mr. Mayor.
Couple things. First off, I want to, just extend my thoughts and prayers to the kiddos, children, and staff at Booker T. Washington School. Today there was a shooting, unfortunately, that touched the school. And I just, it's been very mentally, it's been mentally draining, for me. I assume for a lot of people, but, we often politicize these type of things. And the reality of it is it's traumatizing. Imagine the youth, right? Imagine what these kids are experiencing and going through, especially considering I was just with a good, a couple of them just this past weekend. And again, as a father too, it's like that can happen to any of us, right? So, I know I have to assume that, any other parents want to know who, what, when, where, and how. So as we continue to move forward and navigate, I just ask the community, put the politics aside and just do what's right. That's ultimately it, and nothing more, nothing less. So that's that. Secondly, I will say Darius did send out an email today in regards to the fire department and local 1147 to attend the memorial ceremony for Division Chief Rusty Chisholm, which is going to be Thursday, January 22nd at 9 a.m. at the Urbana Fire Station number 2. So encourage you all, if you're able, to attend. I know the family and the fire staff will appreciate seeing you all there. So thank you. That's it. And be safe out there, people. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mary Alice.
Yeah, I actually want to echo the mayor's thoughts. I actually attended Booker T. Washington from kindergarten to 5th grade. Very familiar with things going on in that area, and as a child, how frightening it is. But now I'm a parent, and I would be more frightened almost because you're not there, right? So in terms of some good news, I wanted to share that Delitzo, who is the head of RPC, the Regional Planning Commission, sent us an email today talking about a legislative update. So specifically in both the House and the Senate bills for the upcoming budget vote, they have negotiated $775 million for CSBG funds, which is a type of block group funds. As a reminder, the president said 0. Okay, so the House and Senate came up with $775 million. Head Start. The president actually said not to cut it, and they didn't cut it. So good news all around. And LIHEAP, and this is one that people have been very concerned about. The president recommended 0 funding. The good news is that the House and Senate bill have negotiated $4.05 billion for LIHEAP. So I just wanted to share that with council and the community.
Anyone else? Okay. Well, seeing with no further business, we are adjourned.